Dr. Ray Nannis. I've known Jeffrey Cottingame for almost 16 years, and there's so many things that were just distinctly that were Jeffrey Cottingame that just really made him who he was. And I think anyone that knew him for any length of time had to have some stories about him. Those of us that actually had the opportunity to travel to Destin, Florida with the group that we did every year for so many years that we did, and we are planning on going again. But so many stories came from that. And of course, one of my favorite stories, because it just showed his laughing nature, the fact that he liked to be the class clown. He liked to be able to liven up the group.
Prankster.
He was definitely a prankster, no doubt about it. So
a button-pushing prankster.
It was a Saturday morning, and Jeffrey and I decided we were going to go down to the beach. Nobody else was even up yet. And of course, we did have to take a 24 case of beer with us. And we were going to talk philosophy, which was one of Dr. Cottingame's major things that was so important with him. I'm going to say another thing about that in just a couple of moments. So we were talking chiropractic philosophy. We were talking life philosophy. We were talking about just some really, really deep issues, and occasionally watching good-looking girls walk by on the beach. I can't say that didn't happen as well. And somehow or another, all 24 beers disappeared over the course of a couple of hours.
No.
Hour and a half.
Something like that. So we stumble back up to the condo, and fortunately...
It wasn't we. Jeffrey came up first, because I was in the condo by myself, and he walked in and muttered something about piss. And I was like, what? And he goes, I'm drunk. I'm like, okay, get on the table. And then you came up.
Yeah, well, I don't remember that much as well. I wasn't particularly there. I just was glad that Dr. DeVore was there because he had his foot detox. And so I got adjusted, got my foot detox, and got myself a bowl of Cheerios or whatever cereal we had. And the way these condos are set up, we were on the 16th floor or something like that. And I went out to the balcony. There's a table. I probably took 2 bites and then was totally gone. I have no idea how long that lasted, but apparently...
You were sleeping sitting up.
I was sleeping sitting up on the chair, my feet underneath the table, outside on the... Look, it would have been a really beautiful view looking out over the ocean.
It was like this.
Probably very true.
Yeah, we guys. Who else is it to take pictures of?
Got a picture of John getting a picture of me.
And all of a sudden, the only thing I can remember is I hear this loud scream. And for anyone that knows
me...
me...
he was this far from your ear, too, when he did it.
And I am a little bit of a jumpy person for anyone that starts to know me a little bit.
Oh, you were a lot jumpy that day.
And I jump up, I hit the table. I'm pretty sure the bowl of cereal goes over the edge. I think that Jeffrey grabs me because I was going over the edge too.
You raised that table up every bit of that high. You came up underneath with your arms like that, and that metal table, let's say it was this tall, every bit this high, it came up.
Oh, I know I hit it hard, and I mean, it was from totally passed out to totally awake emergency mode. But it was just fun things like that, and fortunately nobody got hurt except maybe the bowl, and that was just a wonderful thing. Another major thing that impressed me about Jeffrey, and where we started that morning was a big part of it. We were at one of the SOCM meetings, and he told a story about, I believe the person's name was Coco. If y'all can remember it better than I can, I don't know, but it's something that's always rung in my ear, rung in my mind, was about this gentleman that he'd had a discussion with, and it was a weird name like Coco. And the big thing that he had said was that when he met Coco, Coco wanted to talk with him about big talk. And that just rung in my ear literally ever since that day. So what big talk is it's that deep conversation where you really truly get to know your heart, you get to know somebody else's heart. It's not the, hey, it's raining outside, what do you think about that? Or what's going on with the local sports teams, which anyone who knows me, I don't know anything about.
By the way.
It is raining right now. But it's stuff that, like what we're talking about today. It's going to be big talk. It's things that touched your heart, things that motivated you, something that you're thinking about, pondering about, and I cannot think of a better person in the entire planet, and I'll tell you, this is probably what I'm going to miss the most, is when I needed that big talk conversation, Jeffrey was always the one that I would call. In fact, there were a couple of days I was just emotionally down, and I'd be driving or sitting in the office or wherever it was, and I would just call Jeffrey and say, you know what, I just need to talk to the most positive person I know, so I called you. So those are the things that I would say that are probably the biggest things for me. And then, of course, I want to end this up with, he's about the only man on the planet that I would ever be able to say that married me. Twice. Yeah. So, so much thanks for him. He definitely touched my life in so many ways. He was such an amazing person, and he will live on in our hearts because it's those memories. Because I can't think about Big Talk without him. I'll never be able to, eat a bowl of cereal sitting on the porch at Destin without a little bit of concern that someone's going to yell in my ear. And that's what I have to bring for today. So
There's a story about a hot dog, but we'll leave that one out.
Jeffrey was definitely my favorite person to be around out of all the people I've known in my whole life. But, he had this way of bringing comedy into every conversation. If it was serious, if it was philosophical, theological, if it was just goofy, it was going to be funny. And he had a nickname for everybody, and you didn't mind him calling you that. It was okay. But Jeffrey liked to get into he liked to know that he was right, and it wasn't about pride. It was about he wanted to know that he was operating with the truth. And he always seemed to be kind of at question and at odds with who God was and how did he fit in with it, and was he okay with God? And so he liked to get into these philosophical and theological questions, partly to show that he knew more than you, and the other part to find out what he didn't know to know if he was right.
Pause. A lot of people don't know that towards the end, he actually was a bishop of the church, and he had a PhD in theology. But I think this was prior to that.
Yeah. Well, this was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're coming.
I don't think he's really got that to the last two or three.
No, he was a bishop for a long time. He just didn't acknowledge it.
Yeah, he never told me that. I never.
No, I knew he was a bishop.
Anyway, keep going.
I guess I wasn't in the inner circle of friends. So, Jeffrey, this one Destin trip, he kept saying the same type of thing, and honestly, I don't even remember what it was, but he talked to everybody about this one issue.
Hey,
Jeffrey, no commentary.
Yeah. Just having fun.
pretty good out there.
Hanging out with my peeps.
And he got into this conversation with me, and I just had this feeling, well, Jeffrey, there's something you don't know, and you're not ready to hear it. Well, that was the last thing you say to Jeffrey. He wasn't going to leave that alone, and I couldn't get into like a scripture discussion with him, because he could always come back with something, and we just bat that back and forth. But I had this impression that to start asking him some questions about philosophical things or principles that I know he already knew the answer to. So like I'd start out, I was like, well, Jeffrey, can you create or destroy energy? And he's like, no, you can't. And so he'd go into this dissertation with each answer to each one of these things, and I'd build one concept on top of another. This went on for like an hour. None of you guys were in the car, and I think it might have just been us. And finally, I build up to this one thing, and I asked him another question. If you took a crack addict street person and gave them unlimited power to create anything they're thinking of, what would happen? He goes, oh, well, what they would manifest would destroy the world. And again, he went off, and all of a sudden he just stopped. And it clicked in his head that he had just disproved his own theory and philosophy. And he had painted his mind into a corner, and we had just pulled up with a gas pump just then. And he looked at me and he goes, I don't want to talk to you anymore. He jumps out of the truck and just goes right at Rick. Rick's just walking up to talk to him. He goes, Rick, shut up. And Ray's bringing the card to pay for gas. I don't want to hear anything out of the Angry Jew either. I mean, he just went nuts. But see, it was this little explosion of everything that Jeffrey was, that he liked to be right. He liked to know that he had the truth. So I couldn't tell, was he excited that he had learned something? Was he mad that now he's accountable for something? I couldn't tell if he was mad or glad or happy or I don't know what it was, but it was a Jeffrey explosion. And it was funny for me because before he got out of the car, like I told you weren't ready to hear it. So what do you remember? Because he just jumped out of the truck right then and just lit in on you.
He did that to me, even about once every 6 months, because, we would ride down the road,
we call it a Snickers moment.
Well, yeah, but, actually Mike Posey started that.
I know Mike started that, but Jeffrey never let it go.
Yeah, he carried that on. But I just remember that when we would ride down from Sherman to Plano or Frisco for our meetings, all I have to do is ask him a question, and then he'd start talking.
Yeah.
And it was a 45-minute to an hour drive. And most of the time, all I'd have to do is ask him one question to just get him going.
Uh-huh.
And then sometimes it's two or three. But like the Snicker moment we had down there, yeah, Well, he pissed me off that time, which is pretty rare. And then I was pissing him off. And then what was it Mike Poston said about the Snicker? You need a Snickers? Or
Yeah,
something
somebody
like
get that man a Snickers bar.
And they were talking to me because I hardly ever lose it. I definitely lost it.
We almost started crying
But-
when we were talking
but
about having a meeting.
Out of all of that.
Well, there was a number of other things that were just really funny, but I like that because it encompassed Jeffrey's need to have philosophical, theological questions. He could bring humor and everything, and he would lose it if he realized he was off, and it was just really funny.
And there was times he'd forget to put humor in there. And
Yeah.
that would be one of those days.
That was a Snickers moment.
Well, I think in addition to that, you also had just his love of the South history.
Yeah.
I mean, that was so much of a Jeffrey-ism, just anything about just how his philosophy of how the South developed.
Outside themselves to make their practices better. They're looking for that one thing. What's the next new thing that's going to grow my practice or give me new patience? I'll tell you what the best thing to do to get yourself new patience is to begin to work on you. Work on you on the inside. Work on you on the outside. Work on you all around. And we do that because Dr. Jim actually talked about a thing called be, do, have. Has anyone here heard of be, do, have? Okay. Now, which comes first in that list?
Be.
Okay, so be comes first, right? There's a reason for that because you can't do something if you don't be something in the first place, right? All right. Well, let me give you an idea. Okay. If I try to toast bread in my copy machine at work, will that really work? If I'm trying to toast bread on that thing, I mean, I know that little light gets warm.
Eventually.
I mean, yeah. I mean, eventually the bread will dry out, and I can call it toast if I want to, right? But it won't be toast. The reason for that is that my copy machine, my Xerox machine, is not a toaster. It does not. It doesn't be a toaster, so I'm not going to eventually have toast.
But he would get so passionate about
Yeah.
everything, whether it be music, and he knew the words to every song that I think that was ever written in any genre, whatever. You know, he knew history better than probably anybody. He could make it interesting to talk about. He knew religion better than anybody, and he could talk about any religion from the biggest cults to the most common ones, and he could relate to everybody because we all have some pretty dramatic, especially me, religious beliefs, you know. So it was always interesting to see that with him.
And it was never really offensive either.
He could talk about anything and not offend you, no matter what your beliefs were. But he could
Yeah.
challenge your beliefs, and most of the time he was okay with you challenging his.
Did it reset?
Yeah.
Okay, here it goes. One more. Then we're gonna do it, Jordy.
Do what? That? Hang on.
Hang on, Jordy. Lean back just a little bit. Okay, Jaden, here goes. Oh, did you fall down?
The other thing I want to talk about was that guy, and none of us remember. We don't even remember his name. If once you see the picture, I'll put the picture in the
I
video.
don't know if I remember his name then. I could kind of picture his face.
But he had some problem. Every time we went to Destin, there was somebody that had changed their life, and there's somebody that we never saw him again. Well, this was the guy. That was his last straw. We never saw him again, I don't think, after that. But he had some serious psychological problems.
And only went once and then
Yeah,
like what happened.
and we didn't see him again. They were the casualty. Well, so this guy, he wasn't a very good drunk, and I wasn't there. I heard the story when we got back. Apparently, he got too drunk and started flirting with somebody or something, and almost got in a fist fight brawl with some cowboy.
Mhm.
And you guys just grabbed him and took him home. Well, Jeffrey decided to break him of that habit, and this was 2, 3 in the morning. It was really late or really early.
That's 2 or 3.
And I remember seeing Jeffrey had this shot glass about that tall, and he's putting Jaeger and 2 or 3 other things. I don't know anything about alcohol, but apparently it's a pretty tough drink. And he's talking to him. He's like, just drink this, man. It'll make you feel better. You'll start feeling better right away. And he talked him into drinking it. And he's like, oh, man, what was it? He got him to do that 3 times. And then he started throwing up. And Jeffrey comes over, and we're watching him in the kitchen. And Jeffrey's next to him. He's, I put this. I want him to get so sick of being drunk and record it. Now, I have video of it, but I can't find it anywhere. It was a long time ago. Jeffrey's like, I want to break him the habit of drinking, and I want you to record it so he can see. He started throwing up. He threw up 14 times. Eventually, we just shoved a recliner out on the balcony, put a trash can next to him, and let him just sleep out there. it was a funny story where Jeffrey decided to use alcohol as
A lesson.
a lesson.
But he
a
wanted to be
therapy.
funny first.
Yeah.
He wanted to be funny first. The lesson just had to be included.
Well, Jeffrey wasn't entirely sober at the time either.
Right. Right.
But
That
those
seems
are-
to be a theme about Destin, I've noticed.
But those are two things I wanted to talk about, Jeffrey, that I always remember and that you can talk about for years and years because it was just hilarious and it was so good.
That one straight on.
The three things that I remember about Jeffrey was the first time he ever came. We were eating at that Italian. We were meeting at that Italian place.
Oh, yeah.
Real
yeah.
dark, and he had just come back from a Parker
Yeah.
seminar.
That was in Frisco.
And the thing that sticks out of my mind is he was like the guy in the parable that found the pearl of great price. I mean, he was so excited, and coach this and coach that, but he was really excited, and he just, he sucked it up and did everything. It was amazing how fast he went through the
Principles.
and all that stuff.
Earning his degrees.
Yeah, and we're in Sammy's clinic, but I remember when we made him a board member,
Mhm.
Sammy asked me, why didn't you make me a board member? Man, I didn't even think about it. Jeffrey was the natural person to be the next board member.
I thought about it. I just felt like
In the beginning,
Jeffrey was better.
Jeffrey was always talking
He was
about...
definitely more into it, more involved.
Yeah,
Mm.
but Jeffrey always talked about being overweight. Called himself, and eventually he did lose some weight, but I don't ever remember thinking of him that way.
Mhm.
I just never thought of him that way because he had so much else.
He got all the way down to 180 one time, but it didn't take him long.
Yeah,
to put
I
some of
remember
it back
that.
on.
But he never got back to where he was. But Jeffrey was also very compassionate and empathetic. Two times that I got into something that he went and participated. The first one was the upper cervical, and he even came to a seminar, and it was a good seminar. And he wasn't going to do it. He just came to see what I was interested in. I really appreciated that.
At the same time, the linebacker and hit my back all the way back. I ended up for
And so he told me about the deer he shot. And he took me up there and showed me. He said, "You can come up here. At my brother-in-law's place. You can come up here, but I'm a Texan in Oklahoma. That's expensive." And but while we were out there, there was some kind of noise, and Jeffrey said, "Hey, come here." And we snuck up. There was a huge, probably 100 turkeys on that property, and I'll never forget that.
Pulled out a machine gun. And
No,
got 'em all.
no, we just quietly looked at him because it wasn't turkey season. He said, "We'll come back and get them later." But those were some times that Jeffrey was kind of different. He was always boisterous and kind of the main attraction. I mean, he always kind of ran things, but sometimes he could get off and be totally different, and that's what I remember about him.
I got something out. Easy. Oh, baby. Whoa, no. Love easy.
Why are you bouncing on me like that, son? Why are you bouncing on me?
Addendum to what you were talking about, Jeffrey approached me at a Parker seminar in Dallas, and he had just set through, part of all my class, but it was part of the principles of how to see 100 a day, whatever. And Jana, as a CA, was the one that made him go to Parker seminar, and I think Jana was the one that made him come up and meet me. I don't think he was wanting to do that, and so he comes up and says, "Hey, I heard you talking about you're having these meetings. Can I come?" I said, "Absolutely." So he started coming to the meetings. But the funny part is he drove his own vehicle, even though I invited him to ride with me. Mm-hmm. He drove his own vehicle by Sherman, Texas, on, even though I told him he could ride with me. But he was afraid I was going to be busting his chops, in the vehicle on the way down, which I would in a nice way talk about things. But I can remember when he came to his first meeting, I always asked newcomers this all the time. Are you going to be here next time? And back then it was every Monday, which we did for close to 20 years. I said, are you going to be here next meeting? And when they say try, y'all know.
That means you're not coming.
Yeah, that means you're not coming. And we hear that a lot.
More than ever.
And he looked at me and he says, I will be here every time. And I knew that was true because he said it was such commitment. So in addition to what you were talking about, he went from about 20 a day to 100 a day in about 6 months.
Yeah,
Because he was studying our principles. You can go to SOCM1895.com to see what we're talking about. There's free videos there that talks about the 21, the Society of Chiropractic Masters. But I mean, to me, he's the most impressive guy we've ever had attend. Like you always, as a student committed, I'll be here every time, but you weren't allowed to jump in there and do that. But for somebody to study it and do it, because y'all can remember the old days when we were at the
Clarion.
Clarion or Radisson or was it
the Clarion when we were meeting there.
Okay. And we would have people come every meeting for 2 years, but yet we're not changing any of those principles in their office.
Exactly.
Because we're going like, well, how your numbers doing? Well, we're still only seeing 75 a week. And I'm going, you stood up here and did the principles and tell us why you should do them.
Yeah. They could get to the way they could teach them, but they wouldn't do them in the office.
They were scared to do them or something. It's just strange. And I just would end what I would say, this a little bit on the serious side instead of the joking side, is I really miss, and I was missing it before he died because we were not riding together as much. We used to meet on Fridays too, he and I. And we met a lot of Fridays. And because of family and 5 kids and running 2 practices and getting additional education, he had gotten his education to be an MD. He just didn't ever do his residency because that's just him always wanting to take it to the top, always be at the top. But what I miss a lot is, he was a guy, like you mentioned, that I could ask anything and he would have some knowledge of it.
Usually a lot.
And not making it up.
No, because he would quote things and quote names and scriptures in the Bible and all that kind of stuff. So he'll be, sadly missed. For those of you that may be seeing this for the first time, the cancer had gotten to the point it was time for him to go. It's a big relief on the family, so and me and others, and so I realized it was time for him to go. We all know there's always a time, but yeah, I will miss him a lot.
Yeah, terribly. We missed him at Destin last year.
Yeah, because he was part of his education.
Part of his MD
MD
thing,
education.
he couldn't make it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We'd actually scheduled it to where he could, and then they changed the class or something like that on him.
Well, and everybody took him so seriously, as in he's important, and seriously about his humor and how fun he was to talk to and all that. Butch Saunier, Dr. Butch Saunier of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I mean, he's been, once he kind of figured out what was going on, he's been bugging me a lot, and then all of a sudden it's like, he hadn't been in, 5 years probably?
Yeah. I think longer than that.
But all of a sudden, boom, he's like getting ready to get it scheduled because he wants to go.
I found a picture where Butch and you were taking a pee on the side of the road.
And we were driving away.
And it was your Avalanche starts driving away, and you guys are like, I think Jeffrey was driving the truck.
That was probably Jeffrey.
Because I was going to put those pictures in this, and I found out, I was like, I think Jeffrey's in the truck. And
it was daylight, too. It was not dark.
Yeah. And they're doing this shuffle, trying to stay behind the truck, and it's pulling off.
Yeah, that
sounds about right.
That old saying, I'm going to get out and check the tires. Well, they were trying to check the tires, but the tires were rolling away.
It's funny today.
It was funny then because we were in the other truck.
All right. About time to close this down, you think?
That ought to do it.
All right. Appreciate you guys listening in. We'll see you down the road.
He just opened the curtain. And I hit him with a ice cold